Rick Sanchez has committed genocide, slavery, human trafficking, and mass murder across multiple dimensions. If we charged him as a regular U.S. citizen under federal and international law, his sentence would be astronomical. Stay until the end and you'll hear his final verdict. Everything starts in The Ricks Must Be Crazy, when Rick casually annihilates entire universes. The microverse? Gone. The teenyverse? Erased. 2 entire species wiped out just so his car could run. That's not just murder, that's genocide on a multiversal scale. For this alone, Rick earns his first life sentence plus 200 years in federal prison. But genocide is just the beginning. In that same episode, Rick doesn't just destroy civilizations, he enslaves them. He miniaturized his former friend Kyle and trapped him inside a micro-universe, forcing him to generate power forever. Kyle himself calls it slavery, and he's right. Under 1008 U.S.C. Section 1581, that's forced labor and human trafficking. Rick gets another life sentence. And it gets worse. Rick isn't just enslaving one person. He's the architect of an entire child trafficking network. He steals Morty's DNA, mass-produces teenage clones at age 14 for psychological submission, and keeps their memories archived. Hundreds of previous Mortys color-coded and discarded once they've served their purpose. For this, Rick would be charged with conspiracy to commit human trafficking, child exploitation, and slavery on an industrial scale. That's 5 more life sentences, 500 years in prison. And if enslaving civilizations wasn't enough, Rick went on a multiversal murder spree. During his hunt for Rick Prime, Rick C-137 killed countless alternate versions of himself. We're not talking about a few, we're talking hundreds, possibly thousands of Ricks across infinite dimensions. Each one is first-degree murder under federal law. Every single Rick, a separate life sentence. That's hundreds more life sentences added to his total. But Rick doesn't just kill other versions of himself. In Unmortricken, he finally catches Rick Prime and beats him to death with his bare fists. Brutal, premeditated, and personal. Another life sentence. At this point, Rick's sentence is already in the hundreds of years, and we're just getting started. Now let's talk about what Rick does to his own family, starting with Morty. Rick has broken Morty's legs, pushed him downstairs as a prank, forced him to shoot security guards, and made him bury his own dead body. That's child abuse, assault, and psychological torture. But it gets darker. Rick systematically erases Morty's memories to prevent him from developing independence or learning from his mistakes. He's literally stunting Morty's psychological growth to keep him obedient. Under federal law, that's child endangerment and exploitation. 50 years added to his sentence. In Season 8, Rick locks Morty and Summer in a Matrix-style simulation for 17 mental years as punishment for stealing a charger. They experience nearly 2 decades of psychological imprisonment while only minutes pass in real time. Morty comes out with PTSD. That's unlawful imprisonment, child abuse, and infliction of severe mental trauma. Rick gets another life sentence plus 100 years. Rick's crimes against Beth might be even worse. He cloned his own daughter, then erased his own memory of which one was real so he wouldn't have to take responsibility for his decision. That's identity theft, psychological manipulation, and parental abandonment. Under federal law, cloning a human being without consent would fall under illegal experimentation and exploitation, 20 years minimum. But it doesn't stop there. Rick programmed his space cruiser's AI to use his dead wife Diane's voice. A calculated choice that allowed him to maintain emotional distance while surrounded by a constant reminder of his trauma. Using a deceased person's likeness without consent for personal utility? That's another form of psychological manipulation and misuse of identity. Another 30 years. And let's not forget, Rick isn't even supposed to be in this family. He stole Rick Prime's identity, took his place, and built his entire relationship with this family on a lie. That's identity fraud and stolen life experience. 15 more years added to his sentence. In The Rickshank Rickdemption, Rick orchestrates the divorce of Jerry and Beth while simultaneously collapsing the entire Galactic Federation's economy as part of his prison escape plan. This wasn't just revenge, this was calculated economic terrorism on an intergalactic scale. Under 18 U.S.C. Section 2332F, destruction of critical infrastructure earns a life sentence. Rick also hacked into government systems and manipulated financial data to crash their entire monetary system. That's federal computer fraud under 18 U.S.C. Pararv 1030, another 20 years. Combined with the domestic manipulation and family destruction, Rick gets one more life sentence plus 40 years. Now we get into Rick's direct body count. And we're not even talking about the thousands he killed during his Rick hunting spree. In Rick Potion number 9, Rick creates a love potion that goes wrong, turning it into a virus. Then he tries to fix it by adding praying mantis DNA, which Cronenbergs the entire planet, mutating every human on Earth into monsters. That's bioterrorism and crimes against humanity. Life sentence. When that doesn't work, Rick just abandons that dimension entirely and moves to another one where he's already dead. In Pickle Rick, Rick transforms himself into a pickle to avoid family therapy, then uses rats and cockroaches to build a bodysuit, killing dozens of animals in the process. When he infiltrates a government building, he slaughters an entire security force. Every guard? First-degree murder. That's 30 life sentences right there. Rick's violence doesn't stop at government agents. He's killed multiple versions of himself at different ages, including a baby and a small child, with an axe. Yes, Rick murdered infant clones of himself. That's multiple counts of first-degree murder involving minors. 5 more life sentences. In one episode, Rick stabs a friendly alien named Bebo on the wrong planet just to climb inside its body and stay warm. That's unprovoked murder of an innocent creature. Another life sentence. But here's one of the few times Rick actually does something decent. He kills Mr. Jellybean after the character attempts to assault Morty in a bathroom. While this is still murder, it's arguably the only justified killing on this entire list. Still counts though, another 25 years. And Rick's disregard for consent doesn't stop at psychological manipulation. In autoerotic assimilation, Rick reconnects with Unity, a hive mind entity that assimilates entire planets. During their relationship, Unity controls thousands of bodies without their individual consent, and Rick actively encourages this behavior for his own pleasure. While Unity is the primary perpetrator, Rick's participation in and encouragement of using non-consenting bodies makes him an accessory to mass violation of bodily autonomy. That's facilitation of assault on a planetary scale. 50 years added to his sentence. Remember Pickle Rick? After killing all those rats and cockroaches to build his body, Rick takes it further. In a post-apocalyptic dimension, Rick resorts to cannibalism, eating human flesh to survive. Then he feeds his family spaghetti made from dead humans from another dimension without telling them. Under state laws, cannibalism carries 5 to 20 years depending on circumstances. Desecration of human remains adds another 10 years. Combined total, 30 years. Rick's smaller crimes are almost forgettable at this point, but they still count. In the pilot episode, he smuggles mega seeds by forcing Morty to hide them in his rectum. That's drug smuggling and child endangerment. 20 years. Rick commits breaking and entering when he breaks into Mr. Goldenfold's house to implant an idea in his dreams. 5 years. He sets his own shop on fire in Something Rick This Way Comes, dousing it with gasoline while people are still inside. That's attempted murder and arson. Life sentence. And let's not forget Rick constantly pilots his spaceship while heavily intoxicated. That's DUI. Repeated offenses add up to 10 years total. So let's add it all up. Rick Sanchez would face charges for genocide, slavery, human trafficking, bioterrorism, economic terrorism, child abuse, child exploitation, psychological torture, murder, sexual assault, cannibalism, arson, fraud, and DUI across multiple dimensions. His final sentence? According to the United States District Court for the District of Colorado, criminal case number 24 CR 9817, Rick Sanchez is hereby sentenced to 799 life sentences plus 1,080 years in federal maximum security prison. The defendant will be transferred to a federal special containment facility, Omega Class, with absolute restriction of contact and zero access to technology or materials. Court is adjourned. But the real crime here? You just watched this entire video without subscribing. Hit that button. This is The Morty Fiction. See you at the next crime.